If it's that funky music, it is time for more Big Ten confidence picks here on the channel. I'm Steve Dace with my never partner, but always co-host, the one and the only, because the world couldn't handle more than one. Aaron McIntyre, good to see you, brother. How are you?
Doing all right. Ready to pick another week, another slate of games. But first, we need to look back at last week. I was sweating, Steve. I was sweating. I didn't think I was going to have to sweat Rutgers -6. I was sweating that just because I knew that, regardless of what happened in Iowa, Wisconsin, it would at least be a wash. I didn't think I was going to have to sweat that out, but indeed you did lose your bonus bet. You missed on Maryland over Illinois and Wisconsin over Iowa, as did I, which brings your total to 388 points. You gained, I think, a point or two on me this week. I'm at 381 as I missed on Iowa. The contrarian play of over 36 against Wisconsin. That actually dropped after I made that pick last week. I think it closed at like 34, 35.
Like the gambling gods were just laughing at you.
Yes.
For going over.
Yes.
Literally, we got off the air after taping this last week and the line had dropped like 2 points. It was hilarious.
So now I'm 4-3 on these bonus picks. You're 3-4. Wouldn't it be hilarious? I'm just throwing this out there. We both ended the season 500. On our bonus picks.
Do you know I've had 2 weeks on our Patreon page? I usually pick 10 to 15 games in college football every week on that page. Aaron, I've had 2 weeks where I finished 500 with odd numbers of picks, like 6-6-1, 7-7-1.
That's weird.
Do you know how hard that is to just randomly pick games?
Yeah.
And end up tied?
I talked to you about this off the air, and by the time you hear this, this will come out on Tuesday. The Tuesday-Wednesday games have started. There were 5 games between Tuesday and Wednesday last week.
Yeah.
5-0 on the under. Now, some of them came close. I bet the under on everyone except for the New Mexico State, which I liked them -3.5 more than I liked the under. But the unders were 5-0. So maybe take a look at that. Maybe take a look at that this week. Here are your picks, Steve.
All right. This week, my 6-point game, I'm going to take Michigan over Michigan State. I don't believe there is a single Michigan State player that would start for Michigan, looking at the rosters. Not one. Now, like I said earlier, Michigan State's emptying it all. I mean, they're emptying the bowels. They're emptying the scrotum. They will have no bodily fluids left. All secretions will be emptied in this game. They'll put it all on the line.
It's just a hell of an analogy.
I just think, I just don't think there's much in the tank there, man. I just don't. I could see it being like last year's game that Michigan won 29-7, something like that. I could see that. But I don't think there's a matchup in Michigan State's favor. I don't think there's a single player on Michigan State's starting lineup that would start for us. And I haven't said that like ever. So that's why it's my 6-point game. For 5 points this week, I'm going to take Nebraska over Northwestern, which, man, I'm not confident doing given the history of that series, but there's some games this week that I'm just not that confident in. This is a good slate of games in terms of making tough calls, okay? My 4-point game this week, I'm going to take Rutgers at home over Indiana, going for magical number 6, but I don't think the talent differential on these two teams is that great that's a lock by any means. My 3-point game, I love teams who go on the road, spring an upset, and come back home the next week. They come home, fans are hyped up, psyched out, a lot of momentum. I think Illinois pulls, I don't even know how much of an upset it is against Wisconsin's backup quarterback. Yeah. But what'd you say it was?
2.5.
So mild upset. I like the Illini to beat Wisconsin and the Badgers straight up. I know PJ Fleck has never beaten Iowa or won at Kinnick yet. But, man, if we're talking it's just 10 or 13 points to win every week, I don't know, man. There's a lot of variance there, The
spot is ideal for Minnesota, too.
And it is. They're coming off a bye. You're right. So I'm going to take Iowa because it's at home. But I'm only putting 2 points on it. And I like Penn State to pull the outright upset. I love Penn State plus the points, as you see there in my bonus pick. I do think there are fundamental matchups in this game where Penn State can't just hold its own, but it favors them. I do not think Ohio State has a run the ball downhill running attack, and that's really the way to come at Penn State. I don't trust Ohio State in pass pro against that Penn State pass rush and the blitz packages that Manny Diaz will come up with all that athleticism. So I think there are fundamental matchup advantages for Penn State in significant areas that decide games. So my bonus pick is Penn State plus the 6. But man, it is hard to come out of Columbus with a dub, okay? It is hard to do that. James Franklin has never accomplished that since he's been at Penn State. Hell, my team's only done it once or twice this century. It ain't easy to do. So I'm only going to make it my 1-point game, even though I love Penn State, Aaron, plus the points.
Yep. My picks, again, I don't look at yours until I've set up mine on here, and my picks are very, very similar. I've got Michigan over Michigan State at the top there. That's the lock. Nebraska over Northwestern at 5. That's pretty close to a lock for me. I just can't imagine Northwestern in Lincoln, although it's happened before. I just can't imagine this Northwestern team being able to spring an upset like that. At my 4 spot, I'm going big here. I've got Minnesota over Iowa. Iowa, huge emotional letdown spot, back-to-back trophy games. You win in a place you haven't won in 8 years and typically haven't won in Madison in quite a while. And it was basically just, it was an FU game. It's like, this is how we play football. We're just going to roll with it. And so I think they could be an emotional letdown, back-to-back trophy games, Minnesota coming off the bye. I like Minnesota outright. That's my 4-point play. Illinois over Wisconsin, same slot that you had them. I don't know what Wisconsin does now. Illinois, now defensively, they are not the same team. We know that. That's been well documented as they were last year. But they still, the way they play defense is very much like Iowa wants to play defense. And will Wisconsin figure out that, hey, this is the Big Ten West, run the damn ball? Or are they going to try to air it out like they did last week? We'll see. But I just think with that backup quarterback there, as long as Illinois doesn't make boneheaded mistakes like they did against Nebraska, I think at the very least this will be tied or very close going into the fourth quarter. Number 2, I've got Rutgers over Indiana. This is my Spidey sense game this week. Something is weird about this one because, as you said, personnel-wise, they're not that much different. But coaching-wise and kind of where the trajectory of these programs are, I like Rutgers. And I, too, am on Penn State. Now, I had Penn State plus 4.5 as my bonus pick, but then I saw you pick them as well, so I changed my pick to Minnesota plus 5 over Iowa or versus Iowa. I wanted to have something different there just so we're not copying each other completely because we have very similar picks this week overall, and I think Minnesota plus 5. That's already come down. I think it opened plus 5.5 yesterday on Sunday as we're recording this on Monday. So I like Minnesota plus 5 against Iowa. And as I said on Bigger 10 the other day, basically as a general rule for the rest of these games, if Iowa is favored by anything more than a field goal, even if it's that hook, go ahead and take the opposite side.
You almost feel like you have to take the underdog if we're talking about a total of 31.
Yeah.
You know? So, all right, that'll do it for our confidence picks this week. We'll see if I can grow my lead a little bit more or Aaron cuts into that lead, maybe even overtakes me. We'll find that out next week right here on the channel. Enjoy the games.